Welcome, everybody, to another fine segment of Lewis at Large Radio. Yours truly, Warner Lewis from the Flight Deck. And that means, of course, Smart Talk Radio is in your future, and this segment should be a good one. We have actually not talked about this subject in a long, long time, and so I'm pleased to do that. We're going to be talking to Brian Keelan. Who is Brian Keelan? He is known as the Quit Smoking Guy, and seems reasonably self-explanatory, but we'll let him enlighten us just a little bit more. Brian, how are you, my friend?
Very good. Very good. Glad to be here.
Well, it seems self-explanatory and obvious, but share with our Lewis at Large listeners a little bit of a setup here about your background and why all of a sudden, or not all of a sudden, but why are you the Quit Smoking Guy?
Well, I started fooling around with cigarettes when I was 13 years old. This is back in like 1956. By the time I was 16, I was smoking a package every day, and for the next 40 years, I smoked at least that. By my count, I smoked around 375 to 400,000 cigarettes in my lifetime. During that time, I tried to quit about 70 times and failed miserably each and every time. But on June 6, 2000, I finally made it. I became quite curious as to why I had succeeded after so many failures. And the deeper I got into it, the only explanation I could come up with was that I had, in fact, learned how to do it. I had never seen that approach in all the years I was trying to quit smoking. It was always, here's a product, or here's a program, or here's some sort of conditioning that you should do. But nobody had ever really approached it from the idea of the work you do before you quit smoking. So I started to write an essay on it. The essay turned into a book, and the book turned into some seminars and stuff like that. And people kept coming to me and asking me how I did it, what it was I did, and through all of that, they just started calling me the quit. Oh yeah, he's the quit smoking guy. Like he's the guy that's death on everything. I can't believe that I didn't do it years before I did it, because once I discovered how to do it, it was something that everybody wishes they'd done years ago, knowing that they could have done it, and all the money and time I wasted doing it and got absolutely nothing for it. And anyway, that's what they started tagging me as, and I liked the word because it was easy for people to remember, easier to remember than Brian Keelan.
Right.
It was easy to remember, the quit smoking guy there, so that's how that got started.
Brian, this, let me start with what sounds like an irrational question, but I think there's some validity to it. Do people like to smoke?
Well, they like to smoke in the sense of the fact that when it comes right down to it, there is only one reason why people do smoke, and that is the fact that lighting and smoking a cigarette makes the urge to smoke a cigarette go away. So in the fact that you are gratifying and making that urge go away, that's all you're doing, okay? So from that reason, I mean, there were years when I said to people, oh yeah, I was just one of those guys who was born to smoke. I really do enjoy it. But when you think about it, all that really happens is you get an urge to smoke a cigarette, and you make it go away, and you gratify the urge. But that's about as much liking as there can be, because once you learn to live without it, you never ever, the thing I like to say about that is people always regret the cigarettes they do smoke, but you never wake up the next morning and say, gee, I had a lot of fun last night, but what it really would have made the night perfect was if I had 4 or 5 cigarettes.
Right.
Nobody ever feels that way about it.
What about, and as a lot of yours was self-discovery. You said you tried numerous methods. How good of a handle do you think the medical community has on coming up with ways to stop smoking?
Well, the first thing where I started to take issue with the medical community is when I started going to seminars for the Tobacco Institute and Physicians for a Smoke-Free Canada and Smoke-Free America and stuff like that. They believe very firmly in nicotine replacement therapy, patches and pills and gum and things like that. So they're always going to recommend some sort of prescription, to help you deal with the urge, which was likened for me was like telling an alcoholic to switch from 80 proof gin to 60 proof gin and then work your way out of, they never really solve the problem because they don't really acknowledge what the problem is when it comes to quitting smoking. And they think it's a habit, and it's not. It's an addiction to a very lethal, potent drug.
How let's talk a little bit. We have to talk about this. The fact that despite the education, despite the awareness of the negatives of smoking, young people still lighten up pretty regularly.
Well, it's funny. When I did my first book called Free at Last, people came to me afterwards and said, I wish to heck I'd read that book before I ever started smoking, because if I knew the information that was in that book, I never would have taken that first drag, which gave me an idea for a presentation that I do in high schools called The Truth About Smoking, 10 Things That Every Teenager Needs to Know. And one of the reasons I think young people start smoking is they have no idea what they're doing when they do that. And the tobacco industry and all the other people are very good at portraying smoking as a cool thing to do. They see cool people smoking, and that's what sort of gets them into the mindset that this would be a smart thing to do. And once they discover what's happened to them, it's too late. So I think the message needs to be given to children at a younger age, straight from the heart, that this is what you're letting yourself in for, so that you can make a good decision when it comes to whether or not you should smoke. If they're getting them, you give a 10 or 12-year-old kid a cigarette, he's fooling around with a very lethal, addictive drug. And, I think it's wrong to portray it as anything but that. But the Hollywood and the advertising industry, and especially the tobacco industry, depends on that. The tobacco industry knows that if they don't get kids to start smoking before they turn 18, there's a 90% chance they'll never get them. And they cannot let that happen. The tobacco industry, in order to survive, needs to get 1 in 5 kids to start smoking before they turn 18. And that's a terrible, terrible condition that exists in, all over the world.
Brian, you said, and again, if you just joined us, here's truly Warner Lewis here from the Flight Deck, of course, of Lewis at Large Radio, rolling along here with some Smart Talk Radio, talking to Brian Keelan, known as the Quit Smoking Guy. Brian, you said you had sort of an epiphany years ago, and after many years of trying to quit. Does everyone need to have this sort of epiphany like they would possibly with addictions to alcohol and other drugs, or is it possible to just sort of read, listen, and experience something else or hear something, and that causes the epiphany?
Well, basically at some level, everybody who's doing it is looking for a way out, and they just know what it's like to try and stop doing it altogether. Ike Turner, remember him, Ike and Tina Turner?
Yep.
Once made the comment that he didn't know anybody who was doing drugs that didn't wish they weren't doing them, okay? And there probably isn't anybody out there smoking today who says, oh, man, thank God for cigarettes. They have made my life on this planet so much better and enriched me so much. So at some level, everybody's looking for a way out of this thing. What they need to do is see something where they believe that this could work for them. And when they see something like that, or they're told something by advertising or marketing or public relations, they run to it, because the big problem I see that most smokers have is they always think they can buy their way out of this predicament. Here's $30 or $50 or $100 or $500. Make this problem go away for me. And the epiphany is that you can't do it. It doesn't work that way. And so everybody who has succeeded at quitting smoking will turn around, and the epiphany was, geez, I could have done this years ago. Why did I not do this then? Because it really wasn't that difficult to do once you figured it out.
Well, let's do this. Let's talk a little bit again. And you were talking about the unsuccessful rate of patches and various sort of substitutes. Share with us in broad terms a little bit about your philosophy and your method, and from where you sit, ways to do it effectively.
Okay. My philosophy of doing it is sort of like understanding that if you've never played golf before and you buy yourself a $5,000 set of Callaway golf clubs and go out and play 18 holes, the odds are that you are not going to break 100. You're not going to do very well at all. And if you come back after that and you blame the clubs for your lousy performance, you're making a big mistake. The problem is that you don't know how to do it. You didn't take a lesson and learn how to play this game before you went out and actually tried to do it. And quitting smoking would work the same way. There's nothing more important to your success at quitting smoking than the act of preparing yourself to do it. And when you think about it, that makes a lot of sense. You'll figure I shouldn't have gone out and played golf until I'd taken a lesson and learned how to do it, and I shouldn't have tried to quit smoking by just saying, okay, I'm going to quit on New Year's Day, and you go out and buy some pills and say, okay, I'm going to get real strong and do it. You're not ready to deal with what is coming your way, and that's why you're probably going to be part of the 93% of the people who try to quit smoking on New Year's Day are smoking before noon type of thing. So the idea of getting yourself ready to do it and learning how to do it, and I have it broken down into 5 things that you need to do. Now, I don't come down on things like patches and pills because those things can be helpful. What you need to do is look at them in terms of they're just tools that you use. They are not the solution to the problem. They're just things that you can use, and you need to learn about them and figure out how you're going to use them and make them work for you rather than just say, okay, here's $50 for an order of Nicorette, and boy, I really hope this works this time, because it's not going to do it. And so I'm more or less fitting into the idea of it's the work you do 6 weeks before you try to quit that will determine whether or not you're going to succeed at it.
How much of what you do is based on ways, again, of just sort of repeating yet again the dangers of smoking?
That's one of the steps to do it, okay? You need to learn about that so that you become very much afraid, so afraid that it ruins the idea of smoking a cigarette. You've got these images in your mind of what's going on inside your body when you do it, and it sort of I say to kids all the time, would you smoke a cigarette if it made large pus-oozing boils spring out on your face every time you do it? No, I wouldn't. But if you knew that that's basically what you were doing on the inside, so like the fear factor needs to be strengthened and reinforced to the point where every time you light a cigarette, you have these visions or images of what's going on inside yourself, and then it becomes a very strong factor in helping you get through it. But it's only one of what I consider to be 5 things you need to do.
Any relationship at all between the ability to quit smoking and the length of time you have been smoking? Is it easier, for example, someone who's been smoking a year and they quit versus someone that's been doing it for 30 years?
Well, you would think there was, but when you understand how nicotine works inside your system, you can quit smoking, and about 5 days later, your system is almost back to where it was before you started in terms of relying on nicotine. So whether you've been smoking a year or for 40 years, they say there really isn't much of a difference in terms of the grip that the addiction has on you. And that's what you need to do, is break the grip of the addiction. So it's as strong 6 months after you've started as it is 40 years after you've started.
Any relationship that you've seen so far in the quitting smoking work that you've done between the ability of men to quit versus women, anything gender related?
Well, I'm not qualified to say yes or no on that, so I wouldn't. I'm not qualified in that area. From what I've noticed, the main factor in success at quitting smoking is not gender related. It's more or less what I would call desire related. How badly you want to do it. How good you get at quitting smoking is determined largely by how badly you want to do it. And I don't think that can be gender related.
Well, listen, hey, Brian, as we start to wind down here, talking about quitting smoking, curious as to those in the medical community or those from other organizations that are in the same trying to do the same kind of work. What's their reaction been to the work that you've done?
Well, they don't necessarily see it eye to eye with me because I think, for instance, the medical community is very closely aligned with the pharmaceutical industry and that kind of a thing. And I don't think they really treat this addiction for what it really is. So, and I would turn to them and say, they were never very much help to me when it came to my quitting smoking, and I tried just about everything that came up and came along. It didn't work for me. The thing that they'll tell you is that in order for this product or program to work, you have to really want it to work. You have to really be ready to quit. And I figured that because I was so stressed out about the amount of money I was spending and my fear of getting lung cancer, that I was ready to do it. And that's where my philosophy varies much differently than theirs. You have to learn how to make yourself ready to do this. And I don't think they do nearly enough work in that area.
Well, he's known as the quit smoking guy. Brian Keelan is his name. Hey, Brian, there's plenty of people that listen to this show that don't smoke, plenty probably that do. If they're interested and they want to pursue this, how can they find out some more information?
Well, I have a website called The Quit Smoking Guy, www.thequitsmokingguy.com. And there's 3 or 4 videos there that I put to help them sort of understand where I'm coming from on this. And then it'll direct them. They can go to Kindle or iTunes or Kobo, or there's an address on there where they can buy the book in the printed form. So www.thequitsmokingguy.com, but they can also find the book, How to Quit Smoking and Save Your Life, at Amazon Kindle or at iTunes or on Kobo or any of those type of websites. And I'm working as hard as I can to get the message out and get it distributed everywhere I can. So,
well, we appreciate your time today, and good luck in the future. And thanks so much for trying to help out humanity kick a very, very tough, nasty habit.
Well, it's an addiction. It's not a habit.
Okay. An addiction indeed. Hey, we will be back with more right after this on Lewis at Large.